When a corrupt anti-Trump judge dares to humiliate Karoline Leavitt in court, believing himself untouchable, he's about to learn a brutal lesson in karma. This lesson will leave the entire courtroom breathless. But before we dive in, tell me where you're watching from in the comments. The day began innocently enough in the federal courthouse, but Judge Calvin Harding was already a powder keg. "I said no coffee in my courtroom," he thundered at his clerk, the young woman recoiling as if struck. "And tell that defense team if they're not here in 2 minutes, I'm slapping them with contempt charges." The packed gallery watched, a palpable tension filling the air, as Harding stormed to his bench, his face already a furious crimson. His reputation for draconian rulings was legendary, but lately, his behavior had spiraled, especially when cases touched on conservative figures. "Your Honor," the court clerk approached with trepidation. "White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt has arrived for her testimony." Harding's expression morphed into a mask of undisguised animosity. "Well, isn't that precious?" he sneered, not attempting to conceal his contempt. "Make sure she understands this isn't the White House briefing room. Her title means nothing here." The atmosphere crackled with anticipation as Karoline Leavitt entered. She moved with poised grace, offering a respectful nod to the court staff. Harding's eyes, narrowed and predatory, followed her every move, his fingers drumming a restless tattoo on the bench. "Let's get one thing clear," Harding announced, his voice laced with venom. "I don't give a damn what position you hold in Washington. In this courtroom, I am the law. Is that clear, Ms. Leavitt?" The press secretary's measured response seemed to only fuel Harding's ire. "Crystal clear, Your Honor. I'm here simply as a witness to the truth." "Truth?" Harding scoffed, a cruel smile twisting his lips. "We'll see about that." His gaze flicked to the defense table. "Now, let's get this charade underway. For the record," Harding interrupted the defense attorney's opening statement, his voice dripping with disdain, "I'm already nauseated by the political grandstanding polluting my courtroom." He shot a venomous glare at Leavitt. "This isn't a campaign rally." The defense attorney, visibly flustered, stammered, "Your Honor, we're simply establishing the context of Mr. Beaumont's charitable contributions." "Context?" Harding barked, a derisive laugh booming through the chamber. "The context is that your client is accused of tax evasion, period. I don't need a saccharine recital of his so-called charitable works." Every time the attorney dared to mention Beaumont's community contributions, Harding would savagely cut him off, his voice escalating into hostility. "Irrelevant. Move on. I won't warn you again." His gavel slammed down with such force that the court reporter struggled to keep pace. When it was finally Leavitt's turn to testify, Harding's behavior veered into outright aggression. "Stand up straight when you take the oath," he snarled, though Leavitt's posture was impeccable. "And speak clearly. I won't tolerate any political obfuscation in my court." "Your Honor," Leavitt began, her voice calm and unwavering, "I can attest to Mr. Beaumont's financial transparency regarding the Faith and Family Foundation." "Oh, here we go," Harding interrupted, rolling his eyes with theatrical exasperation. "Another conservative fairy tale about family values." A ripple of unease spread through the gallery. Even the prosecution team exchanged worried glances at the judge's blatant bias. But Harding was just warming up. "Let me be unequivocally clear." He leaned forward, his face contorted with disgust. "I've seen enough wealthy conservatives try to launder their money through charitable fronts. Your presence here doesn't impress me, Ms. Press Secretary. It makes me question the defendant's character even more." Leavitt remained composed, but something in her resolute calm seemed to ignite a deeper rage within Harding. The judge's hands trembled almost imperceptibly as he shuffled through his papers, his eyes flicking nervously to specific documents on his desk. "I have here," Leavitt continued steadily, "documented evidence of Mr. Beaumont's charitable contributions, including records from the March 15th Foundation meetings. Those records are inadmissible." Harding practically screamed, even though no objection had been raised. His reaction was unnervingly personal, almost panicked. "Your Honor," the defense attorney rose to his feet, finding a newfound courage. "On what grounds are you, Don't you dare question my rulings! Harding's face blazed with crimson fury. One more word and you'll be joining your client in contempt. The prosecutor shifted uncomfortably in his seat. This was no longer judicial discretion. It was a full-blown personal vendetta. Your Honor, Leavitt interjected, her voice a steady anchor in the storm. Perhaps we should discuss the specific contents of the March 15th meeting. The change in Harding's demeanor was immediate and chilling. The incandescent rage in his face dissolved, replaced by something else, a flicker of stark fear. His hand froze midair, the gavel suspended above the bench. He stared at Leavitt as if seeing a ghost. Those meetings are not relevant to these proceedings, he stammered, his voice suddenly brittle and uncertain. But his eyes remained fixated on a particular folder on his bench, a folder that seemed to have materialized that very morning. Not relevant? Leavitt asked quietly, the words hanging heavy in the air. That's interesting, Your Honor, considering those meetings directly involved charitable contributions to... Enough! Harding slammed both hands on the bench, the thunderous sound reverberating through the chamber. One more word about those meetings and I'll have you removed. The gallery watched in stunned silence as the judge's carefully constructed facade crumbled. His hands trembled violently as he frantically shuffled papers on his desk, desperately trying to regain control of the situation. In fact, Harding continued, his voice now laced with manic desperation. I'm holding you in contempt right now. Do you think your position protects you? You're nothing but a Trump stooge in an expensive suit. Your Honor, Leavitt remained unfazed. My position has nothing to do with this. But since you mentioned protection, perhaps we should discuss the Liberty Foundation's protection payments. Harding's face strained of all color, leaving behind a deathly white mask. How dare you? I mean, what payments? There were no payments. Guards, remove this woman from my courtroom. The court officers hesitated, exchanging uneasy glances. Harding's behavior had undeniably crossed the line, and everyone in the room knew it. Your Honor, Leavitt reached for her briefcase, her movements deliberate and precise. I have some very interesting bank records here. Would you like to explain the monthly deposits from offshore accounts that coincidentally align with your rulings against conservative defendants? Shut up! Harding screamed, abandoning all pretense of judicial decorum. You have no right! No authority! I am the law here, not some conservative bootlicker who... Leavitt calmly held up a document. Your signature on these authorization forms suggests otherwise, Your Honor. The judge's reaction was shocking even to his staff. He lunged forward, pointing a trembling finger at Leavitt. You planted those. This is a setup. A conservative conspiracy to... He caught himself, but it was too late. His outburst had revealed more than any amount of evidence could. A conspiracy? Leavitt echoed softly, a hint of steel in her voice. Interesting choice of words, Your Honor, especially given your private meetings with certain activist groups. I will not be interrogated in my court. Harding was practically frothing at the mouth. You think you can waltz in here with your smug face and your evidence? He spat the word like poison. Evidence, Leavitt continued calmly. That shows a disturbing pattern. Like the Jones case last month, where a small business owner lost everything because you wouldn't allow evidence of his charitable work to be presented. Just like today. Harding's laugh was a brittle, almost hysterical sound. The Jones case? That conservative fraud deserved what he got. They all deserve it. These people think they can hide behind their faith and family values while... Or perhaps, Leavitt interjected, pulling out another document. We should discuss the Wilson hearing, where you mysteriously sealed all records just hours after meeting with representatives from the Liberty Foundation. The judge's face twitched violently. How do you know about? He stopped abruptly, realizing his catastrophic slip. Know about what, Your Honor? Leavitt pressed, her voice unwavering. The meeting? Or the $100,000 that appeared in your offshore account the next day? The gallery erupted in a cacophony of murmurs. Harding slammed his gavel repeatedly, but each strike seemed weaker, more desperate than the last. Order! Order! I will have the order! His voice cracked with panic. This is all fabricated. A conservative plot too. Like Mrs. Abernathy's case? Leavitt pressed on, her words cutting through the chaos. A grandmother who lost her life savings because you wouldn't let her explain where the money came from? Interesting how the company that sued her donated to your re-election campaign just weeks before. Shut up! Harding screamed, his composure completely shattered. You have no right! No authority! I am the law here! Me! No, Your Honor! Leavitt's calm voice sliced through the bedlam. You're not the law. You're supposed to serve it. Like when you took your oath of office, the same day you opened that account in the Caymans? Harding stood up, his robes disheveled, pointing wildly at Leavitt. Guards! Arrest this woman for contempt. Seize those documents. All of them. Now! What are you waiting for? Harding screamed at the hesitating officers. I gave you an order! Arrest her! Before they could react, Leavitt spoke up, her composure unshakable. Perhaps we should discuss why you're so eager to seize these particular documents. I don't have to explain myself to you. Harding was now pacing frantically behind his bench like a caged animal. I am a federal judge. My decisions are final. My authority is absolute. Absolute authority? Leavitt replied thoughtfully. Seems to be a recurring theme with you, Your Honor. Just like in the Miller case last week, where you ordered all evidence of your private meeting sealed. Harding froze mid-stride. How did you? Those records were supposed to be. He caught himself again, but the damage was done. Supposed to be what, Your Honor? Leavitt pressed, her voice ringing with quiet authority. Destroyed? Like the records from the Liberty Foundation meetings? Enough! Harding roared, his face contorted with fury. You self-righteous conservatives think you can come into my courtroom and expose. He stopped abruptly, realizing what he'd almost revealed. Expose what, exactly? Leavitt pressed, her voice steady as a rock. The systematic abuse of judicial power? The coordinated targeting of conservative defendants? Or perhaps the payments you've been receiving too? I said silence! Harding screamed, completely losing control. He grabbed his gavel and hurled it across the courtroom, narrowly missing his clerk. You want to talk about abuse of power? I'll show you the abuse of power. Officers, I want this woman in handcuffs now. And anyone who refuses my order will be joining her in jail. The courtroom was plunged into an eerie silence. Even the judge's ragged breathing seemed amplified in the tense atmosphere. The officers remained rooted to the spot, their faces etched with conflict between duty and conscience. Last chance, Ms. Leavitt, Harding snarled, his voice dripping with venom. Hand over those documents and submit to arrest, or I'll make sure you never set foot in another courtroom again. That's an interesting threat, Your Honor, Leavitt replied, opening another folder almost identical to the first. Almost identical to what you told Jessica Carter before dismissing her discrimination case, right after you met with CEO Richard Sinclair. Harding's face went ghostly pale. What? How did you? Sinclair, Leavitt continued calmly, who deposited $500,000 into your Cayman account? The same Sinclair who hosted that private yacht meeting last month. The one where 7 other judges were present, all of whom mysteriously ruled in his favor the following week. You have no right! Harding screamed, spittle flying from his mouth. Those records are privileged. Those conversations were private. You obtained them illegally. Illegally? Like the recordings from your chambers? Leavitt asked softly. The ones where you explicitly told your clerk to lose evidence that would have exonerated 3 conservative defendants? The clerk, still at her desk, burst into tears. He made me do it, she sobbed. He said he'd ruin my career if I didn't. Silence! Harding roared, but his authority had evaporated. None of this is admissible. You can't prove. Actually, Leavitt interrupted. Everything was obtained legally. Your security cameras caught the midnight document shredding. Your phone recorded the threats. Your signature authorized the transfers. Harding lunged forward, reaching desperately across his bench toward Leavitt's evidence folder. Give me those files. I order you to. Order denied. The new voice, sharp and authoritative, came from the back of the courtroom. Every head swiveled as a team of FBI agents made their way down the center aisle. This court is now under federal investigation, the lead agent announced, his badge glinting under the courtroom lights. Judge Calvin Harding, stay where you are. You can't do this, Harding shrieked, backing away from his bench. I have immunity. I have connections. Do you know who I am? Oh, we know exactly who you are, Your Honor, the agent replied, his gaze unwavering. Including your recent meetings with the Liberty Foundation, your offshore accounts, and your coordinated efforts to target conservative defendants. Harding's eyes darted wildly around the courtroom, searching for an escape. This is all a setup. A conservative plot too. A plot? Leavitt interjected quietly. The only plot here was your systematic abuse of power, Your Honor. Every bias ruling, every backroom deal, every attempt to silence the truth, it all ends today. You planned this. Harding pointed a trembling finger at Leavitt. You and your Trump-loving conspirators set me up. No, Your Honor. Leavitt shook her head, her expression somber. You set yourself up. We simply gave you enough rope to hang yourself with your own words and actions. Today has confirmed everything we already knew. As FBI agents approached the bench, Harding made one final, desperate attempt to maintain control. I am a federal judge. You can't arrest me. I am the law. I am the law. The agents had to physically restrain Harding as he tried to lunge toward his chambers. You don't understand, he screamed. They made me do it. The Foundation. They have dirt on everyone. If I talk now. That's interesting, the lead FBI agent said, his voice carefully neutral. Tell us more about this Foundation, Your Honor. But Harding had finally caught himself, realizing how much he'd revealed in his panic. His face twisted into a sneer, and despite his trembling hands, he managed to summon a shred of his former arrogance. I want my lawyer. And when this is over, you'll all pay for this humiliation. Speaking of payment, Leavitt stepped forward, producing another document. Perhaps you'd like to explain these transfer records? 7 judges, all receiving similar payments on the same days you did, all ruling against conservative defendants in coordinated cases. The gallery erupted in shocked whispers. This wasn't just about one corrupt judge, it was an entire network. The evidence suggests, Leavitt continued, her voice carrying across the now silent courtroom, that this was a systematic effort to use the judicial system as a political weapon. But justice isn't meant to be a weapon, Your Honor. It's meant to be a shield, protecting all Americans equally. Harding had stopped struggling against the agents, his face a mask of utter defeat as the full scope of his exposure became clear. Behind him, court officers were already sealing his chambers for investigation. His clerk was being questioned by FBI agents, tears streaming down her face as she admitted to being forced to destroy evidence under threats from the judge. Harding's final walk of shame out of his courtroom was a powerful symbol of justice being served. But as the agents led him away in handcuffs, he turned one last time to face Karoline Leavitt. You think this changes anything? He spat bitterly. There will always be others like me. You can't stop us all. You're right about one thing, Leavitt replied quietly. There will always be those who abuse power. But there will also always be those who stand up against them. That's what makes our justice system work, not the corruption you represent, but the courage of those who fight against it. The aftermath was swift and far-reaching. Harding's arrest triggered a wave of investigations across multiple jurisdictions. The network of corrupt judges began to crumble as evidence mounted and witnesses came forward. But perhaps the most powerful moment came when Beaumont's case was dismissed. The new judge reviewing the evidence Harding had tried so desperately to suppress found no basis for the charges. Because at the end of the day, justice isn't decided by those who seek to control it, but by those willing to defend it. And if you believe in standing up for truth and accountability, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more inspiring stories. God bless you, and God bless America.